Well, I think what they've done is one of the most courageous and fearless things I've seen. I think I think to walk away from all of that, the public grief that we know about, but to all of that family pain. Well, we should think of the Queen as a great-grandmother, and we should think of Prince Charles as a dad. I mean, they will all be suffering from this hugely. And Harry has chosen to walk away from all of that to protect his wife and his children. And I think that you've got the analysis of the media totally right, that the angriest media is from the angriest people, or the people feeding Mr. and Mrs. Angry. But I think all of us need to look at ourselves and think of this as a family that's been blowing itself apart, probably no more seriously than many families are going through or have gone through and haven't been able to walk away. But we're thinking of these as, if we think of them as human beings, as sons and daughters and sisters-in-laws and mother-in-laws and great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers, our hearts should be bleeding for these two.
You're not in any way suggesting they should be bleeding more for these two than for people, stuck in a dinghy in the middle of the English Channel or living in Syria at the time, or even people using food banks. But it's not either or, is it? This is one of the great mysteries of our era.
It's not either or. And we are showing ourselves more and more to be a nation with less and less compassion less and less tolerance of different people, different choices. I mean, that was what was going on in the family. I mean, without knowing any of the detail or any of the personalities involved, it was differences of opinion, it's differences of definition of duty, it's differences of definition of loyalty. And for Meghan, what she was being asked to become was completely impossible for her to be who she really was.
It was "Can you protect us?" as well that resonated with me, or we just wanted some help. We wanted some protection.
Can you help me? No.
Because what we're being exposed to is different from what everybody else has been exposed to. So the fact that we're getting less help and support is the argument they made. It actually makes sense of everything. But if you don't understand, then you are much more easily manipulated into a kind of unfocused anger, aren't you, or into indignation?
And we see this with every rabbit hole and conspiracy theory going. The anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, the Bill Gates theorists. I mean, the sensible, intelligent people get hooked up in this because they're only exposed to their own bubble and they're terrified of being wrong.
I guess we are all terrified of being wrong at some stage in our life, but what I saw...
Well, some of us less than others.
Well, no, some of us have written a book about it, Adrian, but no one likes a self-publicist.
And I've read them both. I think that this ability to be vulnerable and wrong and human is what they've shown us in that interview. I believed every word of it. I don't believe they were mincing their words. They did announce at the beginning of the interview that they weren't being paid for it.
They want to get their version of events on the record. And
they want to get their version of events on the record to appeal to the reasonable, sensible, rational, nuanced thinkers in society, which are fewer and fewer and fewer.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, we're breaking down a moment from LBC that honestly stopped me mid-scroll. You know, when someone speaks with such clarity, such compassion, such basic humanity that you think, wow, why isn't the whole world hearing this? Well, that's exactly what happened in this call with James O'Brien. A caller phoned in and said something that so many people in the media refuse to acknowledge. That what Harry and Meghan did, leaving the royal machine to protect their mental health, marriage and children, was one of the most courageous, human and fundamentally decent things we've seen in recent years. And the way James responded? Refreshing, measured, honest. So today we're going to react to that conversation, unpack what made it so powerful, and talk about why empathy, yes, empathy, seems to have gone missing from so much of the public discussion. Let's start with the caller's opening statement, because it was bold, direct, and absolutely needed. He said his heart bleeds for Harry and Meghan. And not because their struggles should overshadow global suffering or replace compassion for refugees or minimize anyone else's pain. but because this isn't a competition of who deserves empathy more. It's a reminder that compassion is not a limited resource. The caller pointed out something that gets lost in the noise. Behind the titles, the palaces, the headlines, this is a family. A father, a son, a grandmother, a daughter-in-law, human beings trying to navigate pain, conflict, betrayal and protection, just like millions of families around the world. The bravery it takes to walk away from not just a job, but an institution, a legacy, a global identity. That's not entitlement. That's survival. And listening to him put it so simply, that Harry walked away to protect his wife and children. It makes you wonder why that narrative is treated as scandalous instead of heroic. One part of the conversation that really struck me was the caller's analysis of the media, and James agreeing with him. They said the angriest media comes from the angriest people, or from people feeding Mr. and Mrs. Angry. And they're right. So much of the outrage around Meghan has never been about truth, fairness, or balance. It's been about manufacturing anger to keep people clicking. The caller talked about how easy it is for the public to be manipulated into indignation, into unfocused rage, especially when they're only exposed to one bubble of media, one set of narratives, one echo chamber that tells them who to blame and why. And James, masterfully, calmly, connected this to everything from conspiracy rabbit holes to anti-vax movements. Because it's the same psychological pattern. Keep people angry, keep people fearful, and keep them hooked. And Meghan Markle, whether people like to admit it or not, became the perfect lightning rod for that ecosystem. What made the call so powerful was the compassion behind it. The caller said something profound, that what Meghan was being asked to become was impossible for her to be. And that hits hard. Imagine being told to shrink yourself, mute yourself, erase yourself, just to fit into a system built to control you. He referenced Meghan's plea during the Oprah interview. "Can you protect us as well?" A line that still hits like a punch because it was simple, vulnerable, and honest. They weren't asking for special treatment. They were asking for the same level of institutional care every other member of the family receives. And the fact that they weren't supported, that their suffering was dismissed, that their mental health struggles were minimized, that's what pushed them to leave. When the caller said he believed every word they said, that he didn't think they were minting their words, it reinforced a truth many refuse to acknowledge. Vulnerability is not manipulation. It's bravery. James added an important layer to the conversation. He pointed out that we are becoming a society with less and less compassion, less tolerance for people who are different, less willingness to understand choices that don't align with our own. And he's right. We see it in the comments, the headlines, the trolling, the outrage. People aren't trying to understand. They're trying to feel superior. James also admitted that vulnerability is hard, that being wrong is terrifying, and that many people cling to their anger because they're afraid to confront uncertainty. That honesty? You don't hear that often in media spaces. What Harry and Meghan showed, as James highlighted, is the courage to be vulnerable, to tell their story openly, to say, we needed help and we didn't get it. And for him to acknowledge that they put their version of events out there, not to manipulate, but to appeal to the rational, nuanced thinkers. The shrinking minority was one of the most honest takes we've heard from British radio on this topic in years. So what do we take from this call? What do we take from James O'Brien's response? It's simple. Harry and Meghan are not symbols. They're not characters. They're not storylines crafted for entertainment or political leverage. They're human beings who faced unbearable pressure, relentless hostility, and a system that refused to protect them. They made a decision rooted in love for each other and love for their children. And society should be able to recognize the humanity in that. The caller understood it. James understood it. And frankly, more people need to. Because compassion should not be controversial. And empathy should not be this rare. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you found this breakdown powerful, if it helped you see the conversation in a new light, make sure to follow, share, and leave a review. We'll be back soon with more deep dives, more honest reactions, and more conversations that cut through the noise.